Reporter Connie Komm will be interviewing Danielle Ohl about the attempt to audit the 2020 election by Republicans in Harrisburg to reinstate Donald Trump as president and the effects that this will have on future elections, as well as the personal private information of voters in this state. Connie, I'll pass it to you.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Amanda. And I'm interviewing Danielle Ohl. She's a reporter from Spotlight, PA. That is a independent, nonpartisan newsroom. She's the author of an article entitled PA GOP Lawmakers to Subpoena Personal Information on Every Voter in Controversial 2020 Election Review. And I invited her for this interview so she could explain to Philadelphians what is going on in Harrisburg with regard to this 2020 election. Danielle, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Connie. Happy to be here.
Great. Now, my first question, it's a little long, but I just wanted to give our viewers some background. After the election, Republican leaders, they started this year, the ones in Harrisburg, holding hearings on the election process, they invited testimony from experts, county officials, and others. They formed a special committee on election integrity and reform to review the election procedures and recommend ways to improve the law. Then they had another committee that wrote a major piece of legislation, House Bill 1300, that was passed by the state representative body, and that would have made top to bottom changes in election requirements and requirements to vote, including having an audit after elections to change the result. July, you had Senator Mastriano. He wrote letters to 3 counties demanding they turn over virtually all election-related equipment and materials. Now, Danielle, they want to do the same thing across the state. Can you please tell us what, in your investigation, have you found in terms of the status of their plans to audit the 2020 election?
Sure. So Senator Mastriano, Doug Mastriano, at the beginning of the year was one of the only senators that was really pursuing some sort of audit of the election that would have the purpose of perhaps finding fraud that would invalidate President Joe Biden's win. That stalled out after he sent those letters that you mentioned. And this August, there was renewed interest from Senate leadership in that effort. Senate President pro tempore Jake Corman removed Mastriano from his effort, installed Senator Chris Dush in charge instead, and Dush and his Senate committee, the Senate Committee for Intergovernmental Operations, had been holding hearings throughout the fall. And in September, they took probably, the biggest action in the effort, this year thus far, in voting on a subpoena that they want to send to the State Department to get not only communications between State Department officials and county officials for their communications about the election, but also personal information from Pennsylvania voters, like you mentioned.
Right. Now, it's my understanding that this subpoena of the personal private information, they want this for every person in the state who voted in the 2020 election. What kind of information are they actually asking for? And in your investigations, why do they want this information?
Yeah, that's right, Connie. They want like you said, information from everybody who voted and was registered to vote last November. That's several million Pennsylvanians, as you can imagine. And they want everything from, there's publicly available information that you and I or any citizen can get if they request it. That's, name, voting history, not who you voted for, but when you voted. But there's also private information that is not accessible to everybody, and that includes social security number and driver's license ID if you've registered to vote that way. And as for why they want it, they have said, Senate Republican leadership has said that they are going to use this information in some manner to determine if the folks who voted were who they say they were. I don't really have too many more details on that because, they haven't given too many more details publicly about how exactly this review would work, who would do it, how long it would take. All of that is kind of still in flux.
Yeah, that was my next question. Do you have any idea who would have access to this information?
So, I mean, the Senate Committee for Intergovernmental Operations would ostensibly have access to it, but they've also said that they would like to hire a private vendor to do some sort of analysis of the information to root out the fraud that they suggest might be present. There's no evidence for that. None has been produced, at least, and none has been found by reporters, other than a couple folks who tried to vote for dead relatives, but that was a very small number. Nothing that would affect the outcome of the election. Yeah, we just don't know. I mean, a vendor hasn't been chosen. They say that there will be one, and beyond that, there's really no telling.
All right, what is the current status of this audit or these subpoenas?
Sure. So after the subpoena was passed in the committee along party lines, with all the Republicans voting for, all the Democrats voting against, there was pretty immediately legal challenges filed by Senate Democrats, by AG Josh Shapiro on behalf of the State Department, and by another senator, Art Haywood, who took it upon himself to file. Those have since been condensed into one lawsuit that is working its way through Commonwealth Court. Most recently, there was a hearing on what the merits were of a few other parties joining. So the ACLU is representing a small group of voters who were able to join this, as well as Common Cause and some other nonprofit groups who feel they have a stake in the outcome. And that motion was approved. Those parties have been able to join. And so, we're just kind of waiting for a schedule for further hearings. And if there's more motions filed, then, that'll push it out further.
Now, the other thing is we have an election tomorrow. It's literally 1 year since the presidential election. So we have an election tomorrow. What effect, if any, do you think this audit's going to have on tomorrow's election?
I don't know, Connie, that this audit will have an effect on the election itself, but the election could potentially have an effect on the audit, because this fight, will they, won't they be able to do the subpoena, is in the court. It is likely to be appealed from Commonwealth Court, no matter who prevails at the end of the day. And so that will, if the Supreme Court decides that they want to take it up, that would end up in Supreme Court. And there are elections tomorrow for Supreme Court, for Commonwealth Court, and for Superior Court, all the appellate courts in the state. So, there's the potential that, judges and justices who are seated following this election will have to, deal with this case.
And my last question is, I know you can't make any judgments, but is there anything that citizens can do regarding their concerns in terms of their privacy?
Sure. I mean, I have heard from a number of citizens myself that are concerned about privacy or just have questions about the effort in general. I would say that if people have questions, that they should reach out to the legislators who are taking up the audit, or their legislators that represent them in their state district.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate you coming here and discussing all this with us. This is very important information.